Heading up the coast for a family holiday is what this time of year is all about, although it seems everyone had the same idea of leaving early this morning to get the jump on the traffic. Cars banked up for kilometres, but it wasn't just Karua and Bulahdelah that were affected, with the end of the freeway at Beresfield reduced to a crawl.
We did experience big delays today. We will experience some more delays tomorrow, and as the holiday progresses, the message is to be patient, drive to the conditions and do not take any unnecessary risks.
Around the Hunter, police are out in force, conducting 13,650 breath tests in recent days.
From that, there's been 89 drink driving offences detected, which is 33 more than last year.
While the figure is disappointing, police don't necessarily think it's because more people are breaking the law.
It's mainly because the police are acting smarter and they know where people drink and drive.
They're promising to escalate operations in the lead up to New Year's Eve. Penny Evans, NBN News.
After 2 knee reconstructions already, the young striker is facing a third after this clash left him and the club reeling.
He's a mentally strong kid, but it may be a case that his body's telling him something, but we hope not.
If there was any positive news for the Jets this morning, Mark Milligan was on his feet after injuring his ankle midway through the second half. Earlier, Joel Griffiths gave Newcastle the ideal start. But second-half goals to the Mariners through Sasho Petrovski, then super sub Matt Simon left the Jets languishing in the A-League cellar.
Is the Jets' premiership defence over?
I think it is, yes.
The coach says the priority now is to not finish with the wooden spoon, but they'll have to do without captain Jade North, who's bound for Korea.
Disappointed, but not the way I wanted to go out, but we had the chance to win it, but that's just been our season.
He leaves behind the captaincy with the club to meet with its leadership group on Monday.
A lot of people ask me, is she as good as what she makes out, or is she just going by her dad's name? And I think, what you see on the park, she's her own person and she can play.
It took me by surprise when I first heard it, but yeah, I do get a bit nervous.
It soars like an eagle, but an eagle it ain't. Technically, it's a goshawk and it's got every other bird beat.
It was originally invented to scare seagulls off boats, and so successful it was quickly followed by other uses.
From protecting fruit crops to backyard roses or keeping birds from nesting on the veranda, it seems to have unlimited potential. Trevor even knows of a priest who relies on the hawks to keep pigeons out of God's house.
Birds have an instinctive fear to not come underneath the hawk, and so that's the way it works.
Maria packs between 5,000 and 7,000 a year in Trevor's back shed. Last week, 10 went to Chile. The week before, a box full to India. Over 25 years, 165,000 hawks have been hung over harvests and homes.
We're the biggest account holder here at Bulpith Post Office, and we send them right across Australia and right around the world just from this tiny little village.
Once the poultry or prudent parrots have been pushed off your plot or punt, they usually end up next door, often leading to more bird scarer sales.
Here we are, 25 years on, we're still making them, we're selling more now than we ever did. Yeah, it's remarkable, absolutely remarkable.
Penny Evans, NBN News.
Westpac 1 is a little worse for wear after clipping trees while flying in thick cloud. At the time, it was searching for the light plane which crashed in the Cooler Tops National Park, claiming the life of Matthew Green. The lifesaver will be spending much of summer in the hangar with a broken rotor blade, smashed windscreen and crumpled tail fin. It's not the best time for the chopper to be out of action with the holiday season in full swing, but backup help isn't too far away.
It's business as usual. We have Westpac 2 out on the pad ready to go. They haven't missed any jobs, and we've also got the Tamworth machine Westpac 3 up in the Hunter Valley.
To get the machine back in the air, engineers have moved forward routine servicing and will make the repairs at the same time.
I would imagine that it's quite expensive damage. We're not talking the millions or anything like that, but it's damage that has to be repaired.
An investigation into the incident is underway. Bridget Wild, NBN News.
It's called the Cherub class, but they have a devil of a time.
Just the thrill of them in about 15 knots, you're starting to jump waves and get air like totally out of the water.
Belmont sailor Trevor Fay has won the Aussie title 3 times now, and with crew Simon Young will push for a 4th this week, given the luxury of competing on their home lake.
Yeah, there's a bit of local knowledge out there, should help me around the course a lot.
That certainly was the case in this afternoon's practice event. They were first around the marker and first home, remaining serious contenders even if they say otherwise.
We're just a couple of old guys having some fun.
The Cherubs start their official racing program tomorrow, as do the A-class catamarans, which are setting out from the 16-footers. For Northern Territory sailor Jack Benson, he's preparing to race on a saltwater lake for the first time in the Nationals, then Worlds.
We've got roughly 100 boats, so if I get in the top 20, that'd be a great result for me.
It would also make the trip from Darwin a worthwhile one.
You don't get to enter a World Championships every day, so 4,000 kilometres is just a few day drive for us. That's where we look at it.
It was a horrific scene which greeted police at 6:30 this morning. A man hit the pavement after falling from the roof of Newcastle's former post office. He suffered serious injuries, including head trauma. Police say that 3 men who were trespassing accessed the building on the corner of Hunter and Bolton Streets. It's believed the men may have been intoxicated and wanted to climb to the roof to watch the sunrise.
They've entered the building, and a short time later the male from the Warners Bay area has fell about 15 metres to the pathway and has suffered very serious injuries.
Back in August, Newcastle City Council resolved to take legal action against the owner to try and force them to secure and protect the historic building. Despite a fence being erected around it, public safety concerns are again being raised due to the lack of security.
Look, we're still doing those inquiries. It appears that they've entered through a unlocked window and made their way to the top, and shortly after that's where the male person has fell to the ground.
The 23-year-old is in a critical condition in the John Hunter Hospital. Jane Goldsmith, NBN News.
Staffed by volunteers, the Coastal Patrol is an invaluable service, assisting at least 30 boaters a month in the busy season. At the moment, it receives almost no government funding. Instead, its members sell raffle tickets to raise $50,000 in annual operating costs. It's a hard slog, and the organisation hopes the government's amalgamation plan will take the pressure off, better placing the new group to receive ongoing state government grants.
Look, we've got to pay for all our uniforms, we have to pay for our education. It costs us about $16,000 for fuel alone for one of our boats here, and I'm sure that's the same for other organisations. And we're looking forward to getting assistance from the government in those key areas.
The details still need to be fleshed out, but the Coastal Patrol, Coast Guard and the marine arm of the Volunteer Rescue Association could be streamlined as early as next year. In exchange, they'll have to give up their individual identities, but Frank Jarvie from the Coastal Patrol says it's a small price to pay.
We think it's excellent. It's just fantastic.
Lauren Bladwell, NBN News.
But the biggest concern is with provisional drivers. They are the major contributors to drink driving, particularly when their alcohol consumption has been really worrying over the last 10 days.
It was the biggest Christmas Eve in the history of the Newcastle Co-op, with a huge queue for most of the day, while hundreds waited for the doors to open at 5 a.m. All up, they served more than 2,000 people in 8 hours. $165,000 changed hands, and the humble prawn proved to be king of the table.
Over the last 3 years, it's been up 56% just for our Christmas week. And when you consider that we sold 7,000 kilos of prawns plus 2,500 dozen oysters in the last 2 days, it was phenomenal.
They believe fresh seafood is growing in popularity rather than serving the traditional Christmas feast of ham and turkey.
And I think it's so easy now that in the hot weather we don't have to cook over a hot stove.
And while things were almost back to normal, Saturday was another story.
We had planned to open for 4 hours on Saturday, but because we only had 100 kilos of prawns left, it wasn't worth our while. So we transferred those down to Tacoma and closed the shop.
Stocks have now been replenished. All up, almost $500,000 has been registered in the tills in the last 7 days. That's up 12% on last year. Jane Goldsmith, NBN News.
Sandwiched between the sea and the harbour, the Newcastle foreshore provides a pretty special backdrop to bring in the new year. There'll be 2 fireworks shows, the main event at 9 p.m. and a smaller show at midnight to mark 2009, as well as a free concert starting at 6. The alcohol-free event is geared towards families, and Council is encouraging anyone who wants to celebrate with a drink to find an alternative location.
The word has got out that that's the style of event we put on. There really isn't much fun for those who are looking for something else.
There'll be extra transport services running through the night, and Council is advising people to take advantage of them.
All of the transport services, buses, rail, ferries and the taxis have worked with us on this to put in place special provisions to move people in and out as efficiently as we possibly can. We recommend people do plan not to drive in.
Over at the lake, the water at Warners Bay is expected to be a popular vantage point.
We have a lot of residents that come down out of the hills. We've got people from all over the Central Coast come up and the Hunter, and we attract people because it is a safe environment. We have alcohol free from 10 o'clock.
There'll be just the one fireworks display, but it promises to be memorable, with 2,500 individual bursts being fired from a barge. Lauren Bladwell, NBN News.
whistle involving John Hutchinson. That's what an F3 derby means to these two sides. But it's the Mariners who'll go home with a red card shined by Peter O'Leary as well. He's picked out McAllister. There's another talking point. Drama charged here at Energy Australia. Full time, the Mariners 2, the Jets 1. What a
He was the Hunters' most successful Paralympian of this year's Games. Heath Francis collected 3 gold medals and broke 2 world records. Making it even more memorable, Mum was there too.
It was really, really emotional, which means an awful lot to her as well.
He also collected bronze in the relay, yet despite his success, the Boral-bred sprinter is thinking about walking away from the sport, and should that be the case, he'd certainly go out a winner. For partially blind cyclist Ben Demery from Dudley, these were his first Games and has a couple of keepsakes to remember them by.
I went there with no expectations of anything. I thought just to finish a race would be good fun, but to come away with 2 silver medals and in both the events we targeted was awesome.
After collecting silver in discus, Kath Proudfoot gave us all a scare when stretchered from the shot put final, while a rough and tumble Games as well for wheelchair athlete Christy Dawes. The Merewether track champion was involved in this awful crash in the 5,000 metres before things became worse.
Got crook, had a trip to hospital, found out that I was unable to do the marathon and got an infection after that from being in hospital and was just pretty fed up and couldn't wait to get on a plane.
Such is her resolve, Dawes persisted and collected silver in the relay on the final night of competition. For her training partner Kurt Fernley, he too was made to work and hard, but it was his actions off the track which earned him admiration. A mistake by officials in the 800 final saw him start in the wrong lane. He finished second, declined a rerun and settled for silver.
I'm not a big fan of asking what could have or would have happened, but what happened happened, and I'm pretty proud with how it went.
Fernley wound up with 4 medals, the gold coming on the last day of competition, and what a marathon. He then won back-to-back Chicago marathons, collected a 3rd New York City title and was named Young Aussie of the Year on his return. On the subject of homecomings, this was among the biggest, as 2 747s delivered our Olympians and some very precious cargo.
I think I want to take it home to Newcastle and leave it in my room back home so it's safe and stuff, so it's a very good achievement. I'm pretty proud of myself.
And why wouldn't she? The Merewether swimmer helped our girls qualify in the heats for the 4x200 metre freestyle final, which they won, so she gets rewarded as well. The Hunter had 2 gems in the opals, Susie Batkovic and Jenny Screen collecting silver, but it's the lure of gold keeping the latter in the game. The Olympic journey is over though for softballer Natalie Ward after 4 games and as many medals.
Amazing journey. It's sad for it to be over and obviously happy to get the bronze.
Green and gold, though, was the welcome home theme at the Central Coast school Belinda Wright teaches at. With softball dropped from the London schedule in 2012, Beijing was likely to be her first and last Olympics.
That's probably one of the proudest moments I've had in my life and something that will stay with me, I think, for the rest of my life.
Tomorrow night, the highs and lows of A-League football, a year in the life of a Jet.
Recovering in hospital, David Brewer and his young family can't believe the 40-year-old escaped a lightning strike with barely a scratch.
I just, felt the spark, but it was like a spark. My hands were, just sort of gave me a kick and threw me backwards.
The accident took place during the A-Class Catamaran Championships at Belmont, just moments after this footage was shot yesterday afternoon. The lightning is believed to have struck Mr. Brewer's boat while he was holding onto its mast in the rigging area of the Belmont 16-foot sailing club.
1 minute I was just there making sure the boat was secure, and I was just adjusting the mast so it was into the wind, and next thing you know I was lying on the ground and finding it hard to breathe.
The strike saw Mr. Brewer rushed to John Hunter Hospital. It's not the only life-threatening accident the 40-year-old has suffered.
I've been lucky. I've had a couple of car accidents where we've ended up wrapped around trees.
Today he was still coming to grips with what happened.
It hasn't really sunk in. It's the same with the car accident. You sort of, a week or two later, you sort of realise how lucky you've been. Yeah, I just feel no different. And I've had a good rest, and I just want to go sailing.
Madeline Bond, NBN News.
With the global economy already having an effect on the number of overseas tourists visiting New South Wales, the state government has announced a financial rescue package.
And we're backing this industry with an extra $40 million over the next 3 years. So we're confident that we're doing what is needed to support this industry, but we do know we're in challenging times.
10 million of that will go straight to regional tourism organisations to be spent on new campaigns.
With some careful marketing and some clever strategic approaches, that Hunter Region Tourism can certainly survive this.
But according to the State Tourism Minister, a tightening of people's holiday purse could benefit regions like the Hunter.
We know that people are still choosing to travel domestically and they're probably choosing to stay closer to home, so that's an opportunity for us.
Tourism Australia believes the expected downturn in international visitors could lead to some job losses.
Soiled mattresses, broken furniture and clothes so old they're all but worn through. These are just some of the items people think are acceptable to donate to Australian charities.
It's a rule of thumb that might be used. If you wouldn't wear it yourself, you have to consider if anyone else would.
The same theory applies to used furniture, toys and household gadgets. Each year the Salvation Army spends $5.5 million transporting broken and dirty items from their centres to rubbish tips. In the Hunter Valley alone, the charity pays out over $200,000, disposing of roughly 2,000 tonnes of donated trash, and the problem is only getting worse.
The Salvation Army supports over 1 million Australians annually. That money could be vitally used, without a doubt.
And the Salvos aren't the only charity experiencing the difficulty. Many are now asking us to hand our pre-loved goods directly to their volunteers so they can be assessed as either trash or treasure.
The pure fact is that when donations are given after trading hours or left at a store, it leaves itself open to theft, which is quite prevalent throughout the Hunter especially. Fire also and arson is also an issue.
Madeline Bond, NBN News.
Round 1 of the inaugural league saw the Jets beat Canberra at Broadmeadow. Game 1 of the final series will see them meet again, this time at a venue matching the occasion.
Can't wait to get to Energy Australia to see what the crowd's going to be like there.
We're looking for the city of Newcastle to come out and support us and show us that they value what we're about. You know, we put so much into this game. We love it. We have the same passion, as any guy out there playing as well.
Set down for the 10th of January, the extended build-up will give the girls a much-needed break from competition.
We're still very relaxed and that's probably played a big part in, being happy about playing and training, and that's, again, one of the key ingredients.
Their A-League counterparts trialled 2 players this morning, and despite Newcastle's injury woes, there was no guarantee of a walk-up start.
Obviously, I've been doing pre-season work with Manly United. I'm playing for them in the State League as well as being the assistant manager there for the year. So, no, it's good to get the boots on, try and get some rustiness out.
Out here to eventually coach, Spencer Pryor has spent most of his playing days in the English Championship. At 37, it's not fitness causing concern, it's the flies. After a short stint with Sydney FC, one-time Mariner Des Giraldi also trialled, but neither player will be signed. A new year, but old problems for the Jets as they toiled with yet another marquee. Released from Newcastle in January and bound for Brazil, the once brilliant Mario Jardel left behind a team gunning for the A-League title. As far as local derbies go, this A-League decider would be among the most memorable, and there was nothing neighbourly about it, as Mark Bridge gave the Jets the title 1-0 over the Mariners.
It's every boy's dream to score in a grand final.
Bitter disappointment for Central Coast, sheer ecstasy for Newcastle, as Jets fans followed the boys back to base, providing a welcome home like no other. The week only got better when, at the A-League Awards, Gary Van Egmond was named Coach of the Year and Joel Griffiths collected the Johnny Warren Medal.
This is like the icing on the cake, and the grand final, that's what we strive for at the beginning of the season, that's our goal. But to get awards like the Golden Boot and the Johnny Warren Medal is just, tops it off.
But there was a hangover. With a premiership medal now among their credentials, players' worth grew and not all could be retained. Mark Bridge and homegrown favourite Stu Mashalik went to Sydney, Andrew Durante to Wellington. Enter marquee Edmundo Zura, arriving with a promise to right past wrongs about South American imports.
You're always worried to make the right choice. But I'll tell you now, looking at him today, I think we made the right choice.
As the new season wore on, though, the club's patience wore thin. In 9 games, Zura failed to score, and no one was a tougher critic than the much-maligned marquee himself, and was released. The club had plenty of faith in Gary Van Egmond, extending his deal for another 5 years. While Joel Griffiths enjoys marquee status after the Asian Champions League, his captaincy, though, effective today. The Jets couldn't secure his twin brother Adam, who's off to new franchise Gold Coast United, after negotiations here stalled.
It didn't seem to be going anywhere, so I decided I better off make a decision now before the rest of the season goes to waste.
Paperwork is the only thing holding up young gun James Holland, who continues to be courted by Dutch club AZ Alkmaar. Jade North is now in Korea, while Ante Kovic is yet to pack his bag in a stalemate with the club over his new deal. The exodus and uncertainty led to sheer frustration. The loss to the Mariners on Friday, ending the Jets' premiership defence.
Barring a minor miracle, I would suggest that we are not going to figure in the finals for the first time.
It would be a year of firsts for the Jets, with the introduction of the youth and women's leagues, and not a moment too soon for one of this country's best.
I had been holding my breath for a long time, and I was starting to go a bit blue in the face. It's good to finally see that it's happened and that we've got a league running again. I think we've still got a long way to go.
Tomorrow night, local competitions, the sporting fabric of community life.
Stockton has become home to a tent caravan city as people from all over the Hunter clamour to stake their claim on one of the best spots in Newcastle to watch tonight's fireworks.
We've been here for 3 days and we really enjoy coming over here.
We've been down here for 3 years. We come from Singleton and it's $1 million view.
Having a few beers and going to wait for the fireworks tonight, and that's it, have a good time. That's what it's all about.
Across the harbour on Horseshoe Beach, workers this afternoon set up the pyrotechnics, which will fire at 9 o'clock and midnight. In Lake Macquarie, firework displays can be seen from the Wangi foreshore at 9 p.m, Warners Bay foreshore at 10 o'clock and from Swansea at midnight. They'll also fire at the Nelson Bay foreshore at 9 p.m. and midnight and at Harrigan's Irish Pub in Pecolbin at the same times. Maitland's annual display has been cancelled. Up to 40,000 people are expected in Newcastle tonight, with most of the CBD and foreshore being designated alcohol-free zones. Police are conducting a major operation to make sure the city stays safe.
We have police from the licensing, general duties, highway patrol, special operations group, operations support group police. Quite a number of police will be in and around the Newcastle CBD.
And they have this message for any troublemakers.
If you want to come to town and do the wrong thing, and everybody knows what I mean by the wrong thing, we will be accommodated by the number of police we have.
Extra bus services will run to and from Newcastle CBD tonight, and anybody trying to catch a cab is advised to wait at a secure taxi rank. Madeline Bond, NBN News.
For the first of many big steps, we followed Jess and Katie along on their first day of school. Still friends and enjoying the summer holidays now.
The best thing about kindergarten is friends.
Many things old were new again. The old West End eyesore of Latex House was transformed into stylish apartments. A waterfront cargo shed became our new maritime centre as part of the Honeysuckle redevelopment. Fort Scratchley reopened with a controversial new function centre. Newcastle Airport welcomed its millionth passenger. Even old arguments were recycled. The former Newcastle Post Office languished in disrepair, as did Merryweather's Surf House. Nobby's Lighthouse came within a pen stroke of being reused as a restaurant and B&B. The Royal came down, and a new image of the CBD emerged with a visionary plan by GPT. The railway debate flared again over whether the city was being held back by its rail corridor, and the curtain came down on the showcase cinemas. Curfews were introduced in an attempt to curb antisocial activity in the city. Catherine Hill Bay residents kept up their fight against plans to develop the coastal hamlet, while Charlestown continued to drive expansion in Lake Macquarie. Former member for Swansea, Milton Orkopoulos, was jailed on drugs and child sex charges. The power privatisation debate rocked the foundations of the state government, with member for the Hunter Michael Costa and Premier Yemma both bowing out as we watched the rise and rise of Newcastle's new local member, Jodie McKay. Peaceful Pecolburn was shattered by the winery blast and death of Trevor Drayton. The community rallied to help bring in the crop. The Upper Hunter horse industry began the road to recovery after the devastating EI outbreak, and coal remained king in the valley. Ships continued to queue for black gold as coal loaders and rail infrastructure raced to meet demand, while climate change awareness was raised like never before. Water too was recognised as precious, but so too was the family farming lands of Dungog, earmarked for a new megadam. The court case of the alleged starvation murder of a 7-year-old girl by her parents at Hawk's Nest will carry into next year. The Catholic Church too has begun a healing process over revelations that priests had been involved in years of alleged sexual abuse on schoolboys. Some answers at least in the coroner's findings of the 2007 Summersby Road collapse, which claimed 5 lives. Gosford Council was blamed for not maintaining the old section of highway. And the skipper of the Pasha Bolka copped the rap for allowing his ship to be beached in the 2007 storms. All in all, a pretty big year, capped off, even in a small way, for Katara South resident Les Turner, who reckons he might just have grown a record-breaking tomato. We hope it's been a good year for you too.
A quality field lined up for the last 2 races of the National A-Class title, and the jostling for position started early. The strong Westerly made for challenging conditions, but Steve Bruin held his nerve to take out the first race, ahead of Central Coast sailor Tom Slingsby. Just 2 days after being struck by lightning, Victoria's Dave Brewer was simply happy to be back on the water. But it was a fellow Victorian who stole the show. Glenn Ashby is the expert at laying down on the job, and today he did it to good effect, clinching the second race and with it the Australian title.
The conditions today were sort of perfect for racing A-Class essentially, and the racing was so close at times. I think about 10 seconds covered the top 8 boats finishing in that last race.
The Beijing silver medalist is now gunning for world title number 6. Not a bad effort considering the lake he learned to sail on near Bendigo is practically bone dry.
Unfortunately, there hasn't really been any sailing there for the last 6 or 7 years for myself. But yeah, look, we go down to the Mornington Peninsula quite a bit. Got a little base down there and sort of did a lot of training before the Olympics there, and obviously go down there to sail now that the lake's dried up a bit, which is a shame.
Still on Lake Macquarie, and the local crew of Trevor Fay and Simon Young took out today's 2 heats of the 10-race National Cherub sailing titles. Mitchell Hughes, NBN News.
Stockton won a drama-charged Tom Locker Cup final just before Christmas, but in taking all 12 months of 2008 into account, Merryweather's year was magic as well. It started with an SCG Country Cup, a district championship followed. Captain Simon Moore manufactured much of that success, and despite selection issues before the country titles in November, he put it all behind him to help steer Newcastle to a win over Riverina. A regional title too for Newcastle and Hunter Rugby in collecting the prized Caldwell Cup for the first time since 2000. In the local grand final, Hamilton beat University to send out captain Scott Coleman a winner. It wasn't all celebrations though. A decision to demote Easts from the Premier Division saw the club dig its heels in.
We've been in 4 grand finals in the last 10 years, and yet they bring in a team last year that couldn't win second division, but yet they're allowed to bring them into Premier Division, and then they decide they don't want 11 teams in the competition.
They being the NHRU, but despite threats of legal challenges, the top grade draft draw is now out, and so too it seems is Easts. A different brand of football, but the same issues for Hunter soccer clubs Azuri and Lake Macquarie. A revamp of the NBN State and First Division leagues saw 10 teams reduced to 8, with officials out to set new benchmarks.
There's no review of this. The decision of the board is final.
Broadmeadow, though, was safe after it won its 3rd title in 5 years. Western Suburbs' win in the Newcastle Rugby League decider was orchestrated by John Reynolds, who scored all 12 points against Cessnock. A week later, it was Singleton's turn to do just that, and its first grade win over Greater Branxton capped a clean sweep of Group 21 grand finals for the club. Next year, they could face a challenge from Raymond Terrace. Financial issues saw the Magpies drop out of Newcastle's top-tier competition, and they've since applied to join Group 21 after a possible merger with Nelson Bay fell through. In the Black Diamond AFL Grand Final, Newcastle City held out a fast-finishing Hawks to hand Cardiff just its 2nd loss of the season. While Heath Edwards helped Norths defend their Premier League hockey title in a thrilling final against old foes, Souths. Bitter rivalries also extended to the beach, and Hunter Surf Lifesaving members revelled in beating Central Coast and Sydney Northern Beaches to the New South Wales Branch of the Year title. Successfully hosting the state championships, the home break paid off for Hunter clubbies, while medals flowed at the Aussies as well. Tomorrow night, reliving Newcastle's NRL season, which included one almighty loss.
The A380, the new star of the show.
Her Royal Highness looked very much the part.
The Holy Father took hold of Claire and gave her a blessing and a kiss.
The untimely death of our beautiful 15-year-old.
He's not a violent person.
I don't think the police were trigger happy.
Mother, I miss you so much.
And their 46 medals, all made in China.
I'm that excited.
It's a nice chance to say thank you.
Milton Orkopoulos, the unknown minister until now.
The three were taken from their death row cells at about 11 o'clock last night.
Nice to win a race like this.
The smoke is starting to rise. Bridge! Oh, brilliant!
For the pain, suffering and hurt of these stolen generations, we say sorry.
To put their hands on the arc of history and bend it once more toward the hope of a better day.
It's a size 10 shoe that he threw.
Yeah, it's not my fault. The last 12 months have been long.
This is Brit's special night.
She would have been so happy to see everybody here together tonight.
There was standing room only at the Warners Bay foreshore as family and friends settled in early to enjoy a picture-perfect sunset ahead of the 10 o'clock fireworks. And their wait was certainly worth the effort, with a dazzling display lighting up the night sky. As darkness fell in Newcastle, thousands gathered along the water's edge, taking part in all the fun and games on offer. The city's 9 o'clock fireworks, nothing short of spectacular. Almost 4,000 people partied at the Queen's Wharf Brewery for the biggest gig of the year, with Aussie band Panau bringing in the new year. Police say overall crowds were well behaved and left the city with relatively little trouble.
A couple of exceptions. There was a person was arrested in possession of a broken bottle. It was threatening people with that and also threatened the police with that bottle.
But no matter where people gathered to welcome 2009, they all had the same message. Madeline Bond, NBN News. This group of Central Coast teenagers spent the first day of the new year waiting alongside Scenic Drive in Merriweather after two 18-year-olds were caught drink driving, a situation the boys claim wasn't their fault. Incredibly, they blame police, alleging officers in Nelson Bay encouraged them behind the wheel.
The cops were just telling us to leave and everything was getting trashed, but I knew I was still going to be under the influence of alcohol, but they still made me leave. So then I came here and got pulled over, and now I'm going to lose my licence because of it.
I would have stayed there a bit longer, would have stayed there the whole day.
So will you lose your licence?
Probably not. I have to go to the court on the 27th and then find out from there.
Police say the teenager's story simply doesn't wash.
I couldn't imagine that one bit. No police officer would force any motorist, particularly under the influence of any alcohol, to get behind the wheel.
And the teenagers weren't the only ones caught doing the wrong thing this morning. On this stretch of road alone, 15 motorists were detected drink driving. Over the past 13 days, police have conducted 22,000 random breath tests in the Hunter as part of Operation Safe Arrival, with 130 motorists caught out. That's 20 more than the same time last year. Meanwhile, an 18-year-old Cessnock man is fighting for his life after he fell off the back of a ute in Morpeth and sustained critical head injuries at 1:30 this morning. Police have charged the vehicle's 19-year-old driver with drink driving offences. Madeline Bond, NBN News.
According to Rennie Derren, it was his family's dream home. As these photos show, it was a well-presented house complete with an in-ground pool. But since the storms of June 2007, it's become this father's nightmare.
I had a 7 metre tall aerial mast on top of the roof, which the winds caught. It snapped half the guidelines that were anchoring it to the roof, which also fractured the tiles and ripped the ridge capping open. So literally it opened up the roof and kept letting water through.
The SES recently supplied tarpaulins for the roof after his insurer NRMA failed to have them erected 18 months ago. But unfortunately the damage has been done, with water flowing into ceilings and wall cavities, while much of the contents were destroyed.
Water kept entering the home for months and months with every rainfall. My kids would bring me up at work saying, "Water's pouring in, what do I do?" I said, "Get out of the house."
An NRMA spokesperson today said it paid for temporary accommodation for the family for more than 12 months, but those payments stopped about a fortnight ago.
The worst Christmas ever. I'm paying rent as well as a mortgage. I'm trying to feed my children.
NRMA says it's disappointed that it has been unable to finalise the claim and believes it has done all it possibly can. The insurer has offered a $193,000 settlement to repair the home.
There's insufficient funds there to repair the home. In all honesty, it's no longer at the point of repairing.
The Financial Ombudsman, an independent body, has also ruled in favour of the insurer. Jane Goldsmith, NBN News.
The season was barely a month old when a long-running boardroom battle reached its climax. The then Knights chairman, Peter Corcoran, was the target of a leadership challenge and was subsequently overthrown as the club's new chair and deputy set out to restore unity.
I encourage rigorous debate on all issues, but once the decision's taken and the majority spoken at board level, I expect that, and I've been given a commitment today, that our fellow directors will be behind any majority decision that's taken, 100%.
4 weeks earlier, Knights captain Danny Badiris ended months of speculation, announcing 2008 would be his last season with Newcastle, bound for Leeds in the English Super League.
It's been one of the toughest decisions, obviously, to leave the club that I love, and I've been brought up playing and played all my whole career here.
And one cut short after suffering a serious bicep injury in August. A tribute lunch was testament to his popularity, not only among Knights faithful, but on both sides of the border.
And everyone likes him, and to be honest, so they should. He was a wonderful character and promoted the game of rugby league very well.
I think only a town like Newcastle could do this and support one of their players. So see some childhood heroes here like Wally Lewis and players like that. That's huge. It's massive.
Massive is one way to describe Kurt Gidley's year. Highlighted by World Cup selection, Gidley was the only Newcastle player to feature in the Kangaroos squad.
That's the special thing about it. They only come around each 4 years, and you don't even know if there could be another one that you're going to be picked in. So very excited when I heard the news and looking forward to getting into training and playing.
Injury, though, brought his campaign to an early end, but he has plenty to look forward to this season, named as Knights captain. He'll lead a young squad with lofty ambitions, and rightly so after big breaks. Junior Sau justified his place at the Knights during a stunning debut against the Bulldogs.
Got a taste last night, but just got to work on the little things in my game, just hopefully maintain my spot.
James McManus held his, all 26 rounds in fact, becoming the only player to feature in every single game, including that match against Melbourne, which for the club was the highlight. They were told to do it for Danny, and they did.
That was some field goal.
And this was some try against the Roosters in round 6.
Expect any more of that, I guarantee it.
Tomorrow night, recognising sporting individuals and animals.